The Great Ruler Episode 126 Explanation. 3 out of the 4 battle stages had concluded their battles as the spiritual energies calmed down. Only the one on the most right still had ripples of dreadful spiritual energy fluctuations, causing signs of faint distortion in the space. It was the battle stage between Shui Qianhe and Wu Ling. The team members of those two teams had their own victories and losses, as according to the calculation of points, the two teams only had 2 points each, which meant that 2 of their teammates in each team obtained a victory while having one tied. Both of the teams had the same amount of points. Thus, the battle between their captains would determine if they could get into the best 4. This Shui Qianhe is truly formidable, to be capable of fighting with Wu Ling to such a degree. Shen Sangsheng and the rest had astonishment revealed on their expressions. Wu Ling was the most prominent genius in the Martial Spiritual Academy. Due to the fact that he had been hiding his strength in the elimination round, he had yet to show his true strength. But even so, he still couldn't defeat Shui Qianhe so easily. Shui Qianhe is a prince in the Blood God clan. His background would only be stronger compared to Wu Ling, not weaker. Luo Li spoke in a soft tone. She naturally had a good understanding of the Blood God clan. Although Wu Ling was the grandson of the Martial Spiritual Academy's dean, the foundation of an academy was still inferior to the Blood God clan. I can't tell who will win, as well. Mu Chen nodded his head in agreement. In terms of relationship, he still wished for Wu Ling to emerge victorious. After all, he didn't have the slightest favorable opinion of Shui Qianhe, since he hopes to personally slaughter this fellow who had ill intentions for Luo Li. This battle will be extremely intense. When everyone heard that statement, they nodded their heads in agreement as they looked at the colossal battle stage without batting an eye. In this vast region, every single person had their attention gathered upon that battle stage at this moment, especially students of the Martial Spiritual Academy. All of them had nervous expressions on their faces. Right now, the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Saint Spiritual Academy and the Myriad Phoenix Spiritual Academy had entered the best 4. If their Martial Spiritual Academy were to fail here, it would definitely be a considerable impact to their morale. Under the innumerable gazes, 2 surges of boundless spiritual energy were frantically clashing in the colossal battle stage, separated by the colors of blood red and deep yellow, splitting the stage into 2 regions. Shui Qianhe and Wu Ling's figures were practically engulfed by the boundless spiritual energies, with only thunderous explosions sounding off every time the 2 surges of dreadful spiritual energy clashed. Judging from the spiritual energy impacts, the battle between the 2 had already reached the climax. Roar! As the 2 surges of spiritual energies clashed, a violence-filled roar resounded from the battle stage. That roar didn't seem to be something that could be produced by humans, it sounded like an ape's roar. The roar was filled with endless ferocity as the sound waves spread out, pushing the blood-red spiritual energy back. That scene instantly caused an endless uproar. Mu Chen and Luo Li's gazes also narrowed in an instant. Shifting their gazes over, they saw the sudden appearance of a large silhouette in the boundlessly deep yellow-colored spiritual energy. It was an image of about a few hundred meters. It seemed to be a deep yellow-colored ape. The ape was holding onto a huge black pole with a savage expression. Its eyes were also filled with ferocity and thirst for battle. As the gigantic ape made its appearance, the spiritual energy between the heavens and earth started to boil. That's... Mu Chen could not help having his expression changed as he exclaimed in surprise, rank 15 of the Myriad Beast Records Earth rank, the Divine War Ape. By his side, Luo Li also revealed an astonished expression, as she clearly never expected Wu Ling to have previously refined the soul essence of a Divine War Ape. It looked like the Martial Spiritual Academy was related to this as well, otherwise, how could Wu Ling refine such a powerful spiritual beast soul essence with his own strength? How dreadful, so Wu Ling had concealed such a trump card under his sleeve. Shen Sangsheng and the rest also exclaimed in surprise, which was shortly replaced by envy. Such a powerful spiritual beast soul essence wasn't something an ordinary people could enjoy. Not only did one require great opportunity, it also required the aid of powerful experts. Otherwise, that person would only be counter-devoured by the soul essence instead. Although all of them had refined soul essences back when they were in the spirit stage, their spiritual beast soul essences weren't powerful. Thus, as they got stronger, the power of the soul essence would also slowly fade and would no longer be usable, unless they refined the soul essence of a powerful spiritual beast of the myriad beast record back when they were in the spirit stage. Shui Qianhe is not going to last. Li Xiantong looked at the stage. When Wu Ling revealed his trump card, the stalemate between them was instantly shattered. The torrential blood-red spiritual energy was being pushed back and, clearly, according to this situation, Wu Ling would probably win the battle. It's not that simple. Luo Li, however, shook her head in disagreement as her eyes fixed onto that silhouette covered in blood-red spiritual energy as a chill flashed. Mu Chen was also closely watching the battle stage since he also wished to know what else Shui Qianhe had hidden under his sleeve. Facing the currently powerful Wu Ling, can he win? Boom! Under the countless gazes, the large ape that Wu Ling had taken the form of waved its large pole, sweeping away an earth-shatteringly large amount of blood-red spiritual energy. Thereafter, Wu Ling drove his pole forth along with a windstorm towards the silhouette hidden in the blood-red spiritual energy. Creak! Creak! Wu Ling did not hold himself back in that move as the windstorm of the pole left behind faint marks in the space as it moved and dense blood-red spiritual energy exploded. The boundless oceanic blood-red spiritual energy was suppressed until it was only to tens of meters. Furthermore, that spiritual energy was also shattered under the whirlwind of the pole. Suddenly, just when the pole was about to completely shatter the blood-red spiritual energy, an unforeseen event occurred. Boom! Suddenly, a mighty fist, covered in blood-red scales, charged out of the blood-red spiritual energy and clashed against the gigantic pole. Under the impact of the two terrifying powers, cracks started to spread on the ground below. As the whirlwind from the impact wreaked havoc, everyone was shocked as they witnessed Wu Ling, who was currently in the form of a colossal ape, being pushed back, leaving deep footprint grooves on the ground. What? Many people screamed out in astonishment as their gazes became filled with horror when they saw the blood-red spiritual energy. What did Shui Qianhe do? How is he able to push back the divine war ape? The faces of Shen Sangsheng and the rest changed as well. Mu Chen's gaze was fixed onto the blood-red spiritual energy. Earlier, when that huge fist covered in blood-red scales appeared, he could sense the movement coming from the black egg, which was the current form of the Nine Netherbird. This Shui Qianhe has also refined a powerful spiritual beast soul essence. Mu Chen's gaze flickered as his expression was a little solemn. That fellow had truly deeply hidden that. The blood-red spiritual energy slowly dissipates and, in the process, everyone could see a colossal figure gradually appearing in their eyes, getting clearer in their view. Hiss! When the colossal figure had cleared up, many people sucked in a mouthful of chilled air. It was a colossal humanoid beast in blood-red scales. The colossal beast was also covered in a thick layer of blood armor, with blood-red bone spikes at its back. The appearance was very ferocious as a surge of savage aura was being emitted as it spread throughout the heavens and the earth. What is that? Rank 13 of the Myriad Beast Records Earth rank, the demonic blood beast. Luo Li said softly as her eyes were filled with chill. The demonic blood beast of rank 13. Mu Chen's heart jolted at her words. It was said that the demonic blood beast was a species of extreme savagery, ranking in 13 and was only 2 ranks beneath the Nine Netherbird. From that point alone, one could deduct how powerful the demonic blood beast was, but due to the fact of the beast possessing an extremely savage nature, it would affect the one that refined it, planting a savage nature into that person. In the Blood God clan, there is a blood sea. The blood sea was made by the Blood God clan from sacrificing the blood essence of countless people. Through it, they reached an agreement to beneficially strengthen both their clans. At this moment, Luo Li's clear pupils were filled with extreme hatred. All these years, the Blood God clan has been boldly attacking the region of our Luo God clan, taking our people to refine the blood sea and nurture the demonic blood beasts. Mu Chen was slightly startled. Despite being aware that the battles between clans were extremely violent, he never thought that the Blood God clan would be so vicious. No wonder the Luo God clan was filled with hatred for the Blood God clan. Mu Chen looked at the girl who was biting her rosy lips and couldn't control the pity that was rising in his heart. The responsibilities on her shoulders had far surpassed his expectations. She had hundreds of millions of people to protect and she could only leave the Luo God clan for 2 years to be at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Her sacrifices made Mu Chen feel his heart being plugged. She had been silently sacrificing so much for him. He inhaled a mouthful of air as he extended his hand and held onto Luo Li's. He did not speak as he knew that right now, he didn't have any qualification to confront such a colossal figure like the Blood God clan. But one day, he would overturn the entire Blood God clan for her sake. Luo Li also felt Mu Chen's thoughts as her small cold hands were also gripping onto Mu Chen's. She felt secured as she spoke in a soft voice, "Wu Ling is losing." Mu Chen raised his head as he looked. Indeed, the battle in the battle stage was overturned, along with Xueqian activating the power of the demonic blood beast. His strength had surpassed Wu Ling at this point. The colossal ape was constantly being pushed back from the fist of the demonic blood beast. From this scene, everyone understood that there was only one outcome to this confrontation. Boom! Another collision occurred. The demonic blood beast was pushed back as a portion of blood-red scales on its arm shattered, while the huge ape was sent flying. Its colossal body rapidly shrank in midair, returning to a human form as it drew long marks on the battle stage in a miserable manner. Wu Ling spat a mouthful of fresh blood. Every single part of his clothes was tattered as he fixed his eyes on the demonic blood beast, filled with unwillingness and sadness. He never expected Xueqian to be at this level of power. Up in the sky, the demonic blood beast rapidly shrank as well and returned to the figure of Xueqian. He gave a mocking glance at Wu Ling. He tugged his arms to his chest as he swept his gaze out and in the end, fixed his gaze onto Mu Chen and Luo Li. A savage smile rose up from the corner of his lips. Seeing his provoking smile, Mu Chen narrowed both of his eyes as he slowly extended his hand out with his thumb facing up and turning it down in the end. Under the sunlight, the youth had a slender figure with a calm expression. However, his gesture was filled with heart-trembling arrogance and overbearingness. Smoke gradually dissipated as the last battle stage put a closure to that intense battle. Naturally, the outcome was certainly beyond everyone's expectations, since no one expected Wu Ling to lose. After all, amongst the 8 captains, in terms of fame, Wu Ling ranked 3rd. But even so, he was still defeated. The cruel reality made many people inwardly sigh. The Great Spiritual Academy tournament this time truly was too intense. Every student of the Martial Spiritual Academy looked at one another as they felt a little depressed. The defeat of Wu Ling had a huge impact on their morale. However, they all knew that Wu Ling was not to blame as he had already performed very well. After all, he even used the power of the Divine War Ape in the end, but who could have expected Xueqian to have such similar powerful trump card hidden as well? The Dean of the Martial Spiritual Academy had his brows furrowed in midair as he looked at Xueqian's silhouette. He couldn't help letting out a cold snort. Those from the clans are really detestable, wanting to stretch their hands to everything. Looks like Wu Ling's defeat made this Wu Qianwang a little unhappy. When the 4 other deans by the side heard his words, they knew that he was unhappy. Thus, they kept their silence, since it was impossible for them to do something like removing the qualifications of Xueqian. If they did, the Blood God clan would definitely not let this matter rest so easily. Since the battle of the best 8 has concluded, let's announce the next match. Dean Qianxing of the Saint Spiritual Academy dryly coughed as he spoke with a faint laugh. Although the strength displayed by Xueqian truly was powerful, he had absolute confidence in Ji Xian. Thus, he believed that their Saint Spiritual Academy could get the best results in this Great Spiritual Academy tournament. The 4 deans nodded at his words. Seeing their reaction, Dean Qianxing waved his hand as his robust voice spread out like thunder in the sky. The battle of the best 8 has ended. Those in the best 4 are the 4 strongest teams. They will be the protagonists of this Great Spiritual Academy tournament. Saint Spiritual Academy. Along with Dean Qianxing's robust voice resounding, a brilliant pillar of light descends from the sky, enveloping Ji Xian and his team under the countless gazes. Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Another pillar of light fell as Mu Chen's team of 5 quietly remained as the light shone onto their bodies, causing a light arc to appear on their bodies as the amount trembling and ocean-rolling cheers resounded. Amongst those cheers, the cheers from the students of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy were the craziest. Myriad Phoenix Spiritual Academy. Another pillar of light descended, when Qingxuan's left hand was tightly gripping her golden war spear with her hair draped down. Her right hand was on her slim waist, while the golden armor covered her voluptuous figure and wonderful curves. Her charming face had the similar pride of a phoenix, and as her phoenix-like eyes moved, she emitted a startling charm. Behind her, Pinna, Lua and the other two girls were all gorgeous flowers, attracting countless amounts of attention. Blood God Academy. The last pillar of light descended on the head of Shui Qianhe and his team, with him standing at the front. He tugged both of his arms against his chest as he maintained a calm expression, except his cold gaze, which was constantly locked on Mu Chen. The 4 pillars of light became the most focused of the entire heavens and earth. The 4 teams were undisputedly the strongest, and no one would deny this point. They had undergone half a year of the elimination round, and in the final battle, they defeated opponents that were similarly powerful to stand in the position that they were in right now, receiving the earth-shattering cheers and admiring gazes. Since the best 4 have emerged, the next confrontation will be even more fearsome. I wonder who will win. I'm guessing that Ji Xian of the Saint Spiritual Academy has the highest chance. The strength of this person is deep and unfathomable. That's hard to say, when Jing Xian of the Myriad Phoenix Spiritual Academy is not an easy opponent. Don't look at how normal she was from her performance in her battle. Even Ji Xian doesn't dare to belittle her. Yeah, I've heard the Dean mention before that when Jing Xian is not simple. Then, is Mu Chen of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy simple? Even Liu Qingyun lost to him, and based on Liu Qingyun's strength, is probably comparable to Wu Ling. That's Shui Qianhe as well. No one wouldn't fear someone that could defeat Wu Ling. This battle round for the championship of the Great Spiritual Academy tournament is probably the most intense in the last century. Whispers that filled the air burst out. The strength of the 4 teams was simply too powerful, and without going through the final battle, no one was able to predict who would win. As the heavens and earth were filled with the mountain trembling and ocean rolling cheers, the 4 teams stood on the 4 respective battle stages quietly as they welcomed countless heated gazes. Their expressions, however, were calm, without any ripples in their hearts. Any of the teams that could come this far were the strongest amongst all the spiritual academies. Thus, their hearts were also the hardest to be shaken. I wonder how the next battle will be conducted. Shen Sangsheng looked at the 3 other teams as he spoke with a heavy expression. Every single one of those 3 teams was extremely powerful, and any single one of them would probably be a tough battle for them. No matter who our next opponent is, we just have to do our best. Mu Chen said with a faint smile. Since we have you and Luo Li, our burden will be easier. Li Xiantong said with a smile as their team had 2 hearts, Mu Chen and Luo Li. The 2 of them, one in the light, while the other stayed in the shadows. Perhaps many people were unaware, but this girl that had not shown any ability was actually a powerful figure that wasn't inferior to the 4 other captains. When Mu Chen heard his comment, he couldn't help staring at his team, and just when he was about to speak, he suddenly felt something and he raised his head with his eyes narrowed. At the same time, Luo Li, Ji Xian, Wen Jingxian and Shui Qianhe had also realized it as they raised their heads as well. Their line of sights were directed at the horizon, and up in the horizon, space suddenly started to violently distort as a colossal object that was roughly a few thousand meters in size exited from the distorted space. Hiss. When everyone saw that colossal object that broke out from the space, they couldn't refrain from sucking in a mouthful of air. It was a bronze mirror that was roughly a few thousand meters. The rim of the bronze mirror was filled with extremely profound runes, ancient and obscure. The surface of the mirror was dark ash-gray, as if it was covered in dust and could not be seen. The instant the bronze mirror appeared, the space in this region showed signs of disorder, as if an incredibly powerful object that it could not withstand had appeared. The bronze mirror quietly hovered in the sky. The surface of the mirror that was covered in dust gave off a feeling as if it could reflect anything that was in the Great Thousand World. That's... Shock was revealed in Mu Chen's eyes as he felt that the great Meru demonic pillar within his body have fine trembles. Furthermore, he was even more stunned when there were slight ripples from the Immortal page. That's the divine artifact of the 5 great spiritual academies, the Mirror of Judgment. Sword lights also uncontrollably surged out of Luo Li's hand as a sword cry rang out, as if it was trying to struggle free from her hand to compete with the mysterious bronze mirror. The Mirror of Judgment? Hearing this name, everyone felt startled, and even Mu Chen's gaze was complicated. Generally speaking, the Mirror of Judgment more or less had something to do with the fact that he could enter the spiritual road and meet Luo Li, since the Mirror of Judgment that was before him selected the people that were qualified for the spiritual road. What rank of divine artifact is it? Mu Chen looked at Luo Li as he asked with a soft voice. Probably above high rank. Luo Li said after a brief ponder. Mu Chen inhaled a mouthful of air again. Above high rank divine artifact? Probably only those ancient clans with powerful foundations could possess such a powerful divine artifact. He never expected for it to appear in the 5 great academies. Legend has it that this Mirror of Judgment has been handed down since the ancient times. The light ray from it could penetrate the barrier of any plane. When it shines onto a lower plane, no one can hide from its light. Luo Li continued explaining. It is said that in the ancient times, the light of this Mirror of Judgment could even reduce sovereign realm experts to dust. So dreadful? Mu Chen's heart shook. If that was the case, didn't it mean that he could use this Mirror of Judgment to locate his mother? However, the thought flashed for only a moment before it was dispelled. His mother had gone through so much effort in order to keep him hidden. If he went poking his nose around, it might be sensed by that mysterious clan. At the current moment, Mu Chen didn't think that he had the qualifications to confront that clan. It's just a legend, but this Mirror of Judgment seems to have undergone a tribulation during the ancient times and thus, it was damaged. It shouldn't have any dreadful power anymore. Luo Li spoke as she smiled. I wonder what the 5 great deans are planning by suddenly summoning the Mirror of Judgment. Su Xian was a little confused as she spoke her doubts. The Mirror of Judgment did not belong to any of the spiritual academies but shared amongst the 5. It could only be summoned with the 5 great deans acting at the same time. Is it for the battle of the best for next? Shen Songchen spoke in astonishment. That should be the case. Mu Chen and Luo Li exchanged looks as only this reason would explain it. Otherwise, the 5 great deans would definitely not take this divine artifact out so easily. Just when everyone was lost in their guessing and doubts, Dean Qianqing of the Saint Spiritual Academy in midair revealed a light smile as he pointed towards the Mirror of Judgment as his robust voice rang out within everyone's ears. All of your guesses are correct. The battle of the best 4 will be started by the Mirror of Judgment. Russell. As he spoke, mountain trembling and ocean rolling cheers rang out in an instant. Even Mu Chen and his team had shock in their eyes as they exchanged looks. The battle of the best 4 seemed to be more and more interesting. The colossal ancient bronze mirror hovered in the horizon, distorting the surrounding space as space looked to be on the verge of shattering. As if the space couldn't withstand the divine artifact. Everyone focused their gazes on the Mirror of Judgment as awe and surprise was revealed on their faces. It was probably the first time everyone had seen such a dreadful divine artifact of such a grade in their lives. What has the upcoming battle of the best 4 got to do with the Mirror of Judgment? According to what Dean Qianqing said, it should be the case. Then, it's interesting. Innumerable whispers spread out as many people were a little curious since the battle of the best 4 this time seemed a bit different. It was not the usual lottery method, but another method. However, this was precisely the reason why everyone had expectations for it. After all, the 5 great academies wouldn't normally take out a divine artifact like the Mirror of Judgment. Thus, it was a feast for their eyes. Naturally, they were not the only ones curious. Even the best 4 teams were looking at the Mirror of Judgment in astonishment, since they had no idea how the battle of the best 4 would take place. Under the myriad of looks, Dean Qianqing stood with his hands behind his back and smiled. In the battle of the best 4 coming up next, the 4 teams will enter the Mirror of Judgment, and you only have one objective, to walk out of the Mirror of Judgment. If not even one member of the team can successfully walk out, that team's qualification will be seized, and their journey in the tournament will come to an end. The eyes of Mu Chen and the rest grew cold, since it looked like the test in the Mirror of Judgment had a dangerous possibility of total annihilation. Although it was controlled by the 5 great deans and thus, there wouldn't be any danger to one's life, they would lose their qualifications to fight for the championship. Have you all understood? Dean Qianqing slowly spoke as he looked at the 4 teams. The 4 teams nodded at his words. Since that's the case, Dean Qianqing slightly nodded his head as he looked at the 4 other deans and continued, then, let's open the Mirror of Judgment. The four deans stood up at the same time and made a gripping gesture with their hands, for ancient bronze seals flew out from their hands as they radiated with light. The 5 lights exploded with high speed as they entered the surface of the Mirror of Judgment, which was covered in dust. Buzz! Buzz! A peculiar buzzing noise rang out between the heavens and earth as the huge Mirror of Judgment slowly started to rotate. As the Mirror of Judgment moved, the surrounding space started to shatter, revealing hideous-looking cracks and a pitch-black abyss. With the Mirror of Judgment rotating, the surface of the mirror, which was covered in dust, slowly started to turn clear as a faint light was being emitted from it, seemingly capable of penetrating through the obstructions of space. On the stage, the 4 teams were looking at the clear mirror with heavy expressions. "Let's go." Mu Chen deeply inhaled a mouthful of air, let out a bark and waved his hand, speaking nothing else. "Rustle." When he finished speaking, his figure was the first to fly out, transforming into a light ray as he streaked across the horizon and charged directly into the Mirror of Judgment, before disappearing into it. After him, Luo Li and the other 3 of his team closely followed behind. At the same time when Mu Chen's team entered the Mirror of Judgment, the 3 remaining teams charged in without any hesitation as well. As the 4 teams disappeared, the surface of the Mirror of Judgment radiated with brilliance, and a huge screen appeared, displaying the 4 teams. Everyone widened their eyes as they looked at this region, the space where the Mirror of Judgment's test would take place. When Mu Chen and his team entered the Mirror of Judgment, their eyes were blinded by the dazzling light for an instant, before it disappeared. As the light dissipated, Mu Chen and his team raised their guard. Spiritual energy covered them as they tensed their bodies and looked at the surroundings with vigilance. After that, they couldn't help having their expressions changed. The area which they were in seemed to be in the chaotic ocean depths. The ocean was extremely vast. Since the end couldn't be seen, it was inscrutable. Furthermore, there was a dreadful pressure that existed in this chaotic ocean, a pressure that made Mu Chen and his team feel their scalps tingling. There was a faint sphere of light around their team. It was this sphere of light that isolated them from the chaotic ocean. But despite that, the indescribable pressure still continuously invaded in. This ocean seems to be formed entirely from spiritual energy. Mu Chen's gaze closely looked at the chaotic ocean outside the sphere of light as he spoke with his eyes twitching. Hearing his words, the faces of Shen Sungsheng and the rest instantly changed as they looked around the chaotic ocean with fear in their eyes. All of this was purely formed from spiritual energy? It formed an entire actual ocean. Just how frightening was that? Furthermore, what made their hearts jolt was the fact that they seemed to currently be in this spiritual energy ocean. At the thought of that, the faces of Shen Sungsheng and the rest grew pale. Even if this spiritual energy ocean wasn't controlled by anyone, the pressure itself was more than enough to suffocate them. Mu Chen swept his eyes as he realized that there were 3 similar spheres of light surrounding the 3 other teams. At this moment, they were also looking around at this unfamiliar place. In 10 breaths' time, the light shield that is protecting all of you will shatter. The end of this spiritual energy ocean is right above you, and in here, you are all allowed to execute any means you have. As long as you are able to reach the end, you will be able to walk out of the Mirror of Judgment. Similarly, the teams that a single member could not walk out will lose their qualifications. When Mu Chen was looking around, a robust voice suddenly rang out in their ears. It was the voice of Ding Qiansheng. Hearing his voice, the eyes of Mu Chen and the rest narrowed as their bodies tensed up. 10 breaths of time passed in a flash as the atmosphere within the light sphere made them feel suffocated. Crack! When 10 breaths of time passed, the light surrounding them dimmed as a cracking noise resounded, turning into sparks of light as the sphere dissipated. As the light sphere shattered, the dreadful spiritual energy ocean swept forth, engulfing the 5 of them with the fearsome spiritual energy pressure that was mountain trembling and ocean rolling. On the surface of Mu Chen's body, black lightning burst out in nearly an instant as it flickered. He had clearly activated his lightning god's physique. But even so, he still felt an instant of heaviness on his body as the terrifying pressure swept towards him from all directions, as if it was trying to tear his body into shreds from the pressure. Beside him, Shen Sungsheng, Li Xiantong and Su Xian had already circulated the spiritual energy in their bodies, forming a barrier on the surface of their skin. However, their bodies still felt tens of feet down, and their faces were a little red. Only Luo Li was able to keep up with Mu Chen. What powerful spiritual energy pressure! Luo Li also wore a heavy expression, but fortunately, the spiritual energy ocean wasn't deliberately controlled to deal with them. Otherwise, they would suffer heavy injuries in an instant. Mu Chen nodded in agreement as he looked into the distance. There was spiritual light as the three other teams had clearly used their full strength to resist the pressure of this spiritual energy ocean. Let's charge! Mu Chen looked above, but the end could not be seen from the chaotic color. Looks like it isn't an easy task to get out of this spiritual energy ocean. It didn't matter how hard it was to get their way there or what would happen next, they had to leave this place first. Okay. Luo Li lightly nodded her head. Looking at it, Mu Chen inhaled a mouthful of air as the black lightning radiated even more on the surface of his body. On his chest, 6 lightning runes appeared at rapid speed as he stepped on the empty ground. A wave of air swept out as the liquid of spiritual energy exploded. At the same time, his figure was like black lightning as he charged up. Black lightning was being released around him to resist the terrifying pressure coming from the spiritual energy ocean. Luo Li followed behind Mu Chen as the spiritual energy on the surface of her body rapidly flowed. She was using a clever method to negate a part of the pressure and maintained her speed. Not far away from the two, Shen Sangsheng and the other two clenched their teeth as they closely followed behind. This place made them feel as if they were deep in the mud as the spiritual energy in their bodies was being rapidly exhausted. Far away, the 3 teams had also moved. 15 light silhouettes were shuttling in the spiritual energy ocean, traveling at a rapid speed towards the end of the ocean. That scene was clear to those outside the Mirror of Judgment. There were 20 light silhouettes that were quickly tearing through the chaotic spiritual energy ocean. Although they weren't present in it, they could also sense the dreadful spiritual energy pressure emitted from the Mirror of Judgment, which made them feel inwardly startled. If it were them, they would probably not be able to move an inch forth, not to mention about reaching the end. Up in midair, the 5 great demons were also staring at the Mirror of Judgment, but each of them had a different expression in their eyes as they looked at the 20 light silhouettes. Ha, I wonder how many people will be able to walk out of the Mirror of Judgment this time. Din Qian of the Azure Sky Spiritual Academy smiled as he spoke with interest. It's not so easy to walk out of the Sea of Judgment. Din Qian faintly smiled as his abstract eyes were looking into the clear mirror as he slowly spoke. I believe the number of people that could walk out from it won't exceed the fingers on one's hand. 10+ light silhouettes were like fishes, flashing in the chaotic spiritual energy ocean with boundless spiritual energy fluctuating around them, resisting the dreadful pressure that was coming from all directions. Compared to the speed outside, those 10+ light silhouettes were clearly slower. The spiritual energy pressure of this ocean had reached a terrifying level. If one wished to move forward, they would have to exhaust a large amount of their spiritual energy. Thus, even if the 4 teams were peak experts, it was impossible for them to travel in the spiritual energy ocean without any obstructions. Because of the spiritual energy pressure, there were members amongst the 4 teams that had started to reveal their strength in just a few minutes. Just like Mu Chen's team, Mu Chen and Luo Li charged in the front while Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong followed 10 feet behind and Su Xian was after them. Although Shen Sangsheng and the rest had executed their spiritual energy to the limits, they still could not catch up to the 2. Likewise, the 3 other teams also had similar distances dragged apart. Su Xian was last. Her face was flushed red at this moment as the spiritual energy on the surface of her body also became chaotic. She could feel that her spiritual energy couldn't hold out much longer. Do you need help? Mu Chen transmitted his voice with his spiritual energy to Su Xian's ears. Su Xian clenched her teeth as she shook her head. Looks like I'll have to drop out of the team. The rest will depend on you guys, don't bother stopping because of me. She knew very well what she had to do, not to burden Mu Chen and the rest. After all, this test didn't require all of them to pass through the Sea of Judgment. Only one of them had to make it out, and they would succeed. Hearing her reply, Mu Chen and the rest hesitated for a brief moment, before nodding their heads in the end. Right now wasn't the time for them to stop and help their teammates. Then, we'll make a move first, you be careful. Mu Chen spoke as he inhaled a deep breath. The black lightning on the surface of his body radiated with more brilliance. He stomped his foot, causing the liquid spiritual energy beneath to explode as his speed increased. Luo Li also quietly formed seals with her hands as a flowing light film was formed on the surface of her body. Although her method wasn't as overbearing as Mu Chen's, it was ingenious as it negated part of the spiritual energy pressure to maintain her speed. Looking at the scene from the back, Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong bitterly smiled. Although their situation was slightly better compared to Su Xian, the spiritual energy in their bodies was rapidly being depleted. This also made them understand a fact: they would never be able to be on the same echelon as Mu Chen and Luo Li. Russell. The four of them formed into two different echelons, one group at the front while the other remained behind. A distance away, there was also a similar clear distinction. However, only the captains of the three teams were in the first echelon. Whoosh! The sounds of the liquid spiritual energy being swept across was like the sound of water flowing as it resounded by their ears. Everyone's faces were filled with graveness as they maintained their alert in high speed. Although this sea of judgment looked rather calm, it gave them a feeling of unease. As they thought about it, this sea of judgment might not be as simple as it looked. Mu Chen's gaze faintly flickered as he stared at the calm sea of judgment and, in a split second, his pupils abruptly shrank as he vaguely sensed the surrounding liquid spiritual energy becoming more and more violent. "Be cautious," Mu Chen reminded with a heavy voice. Just when he finished speaking, Luo Li's face changed as she hastily said, "Watch out below." Mu Chen's heart went cold as he saw a huge spiritual energy vortex suddenly appear at the bottom of the spiritual energy ocean as he swept his gaze. It was like a huge mouth opening that was devouring at their direction. A powerful suction force came from the spiritual energy vortex, causing their speed to gradually slow down. Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong were located below, and their faces instantly changed as they felt, under the suction force of the vortex, their speed becoming as slow as a snail. Not only that, they were also slowly moving back bit by bit. Damn it! The faces of Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong instantly turned ugly as they circulated their spiritual energy to the limits. Despite that, they saw the vortex rotating faster to the point that it was even getting close to them. "You go first." Li Xiantong furrowed his brows as he grabbed onto Shen Sangsheng's arm and threw him forth, whereas he was sent flying back from the opposing force and was devoured by the vortex. Borrowing that force, Shen Sangsheng was able to break free of the spiritual energy vortex for the time being. However, he still had a bitter expression on his face as that method was just a temporary delay. Whoosh! Whoosh! The instant Mu Chen and his team encountered trouble, so did the other teams. Large spiritual energy vortices were like oceanic beasts as the burst of suction forces devoured all those silhouettes behind. Everyone felt their scalps were a little numb at this moment as they knew that the Sea of Judgment was finally revealing its power. Rustle. Everyone accelerated their speed to the limits as they rapidly traveled through the liquid spiritual energy as they tried their best to break free from being devoured by the pressing vortices. Shen Sangsheng had also pushed his spiritual energy to his limit. His face was flushed red as the boundless spiritual energy that was spread around him was pushing away the pressuring spiritual energy liquid. Just as he was trying his best to resist, he finally broke free from the approaching spiritual energy vortex. The instant the suction force disappeared, Shen Sangsheng felt relieved and couldn't help himself from cursing, "That damnable thing. Watch out!" However, just when he felt relieved, Mu Chen's bark suddenly rang in his ears. Shen Sangsheng turned his head. He saw the chaotic spiritual energy ripples at his right formed into a peculiar vortex, and he was devoured by it before he could even react. Mu Chen and Luo Li exchanged looks, since they never expected the two of them to be the only ones left in less than 10 minutes. But fortunately, the loss of the other teams was even greater. Only the 4 captains were left from a total of 15 people. But at this point in time, they didn't have the mood to think about that as they could sense that this Sea of Judgment had been thoroughly awakened. Violent liquid spiritual energy started to sweep in multiple layers as densely packed spiritual energy vortices appeared. The vortices were like huge mouths as they tried to devour them. At this point in time, it was tough to advance. Not only did they have to resist the dreadful spiritual energy pressure, they still had to be alert against the spiritual energy vortices that randomly appeared around them. Under this harsh environment, even Mu Chen had his forehead covered with beads of sweat in less than 5 minutes. And outside of the Mirror of Judgment, many people were dumbfounded as they looked at the 5 miserable figures in the Sea of Judgment. There would be spiritual energy vortices appearing beside them from time to time, making them frightened as they watched. It truly was not an easy task to pass through the Sea of Judgment. Shit, Mu Chen fell into the spiritual energy vortex as well. In the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy region, Yi Qingling's face abruptly changed when she saw Mu Chen's advancing figure being devoured by a vortex before he could even evade. A spiritual energy vortex of such level is still insufficient to trap him, don't worry. Ling Shi spoke. As she spoke, Yi Qingling and the rest saw brilliant black lightning suddenly exploded from Mu Chen's body as his speed surged, escaping from the spiritual energy vortex, and only then did they feel relieved. However, the spiritual energy vortices will only get stronger and stronger. If he were to fall into one again, it might be troublesome. Ling Shi slowly spoke as her gorgeous eyes looked at the Mirror of Judgment. When Yi Qingling and the rest heard her words, they couldn't help having their hearts lifted. Within the chaotic Sea of Judgment. Are you all right? Luo Li quickly inquired as she looked at Mu Chen, who had just escaped from the spiritual energy vortex. Mu Chen shook his head as 7 lightning runes appeared on his chest. Clearly, he had pushed his lightning god's physique to the limits just to break free from the spiritual energy vortex. Be careful, the spiritual energy vortices are getting stronger and stronger. Mu Chen reminded. The scale of the vortex that appeared earlier had already reached a few hundred feet. The spiritual energy in it was violent to a fearsome extent. If he were to fall in it again, even if he could make it out, it would definitely be after a huge exhaustion. Even he might not be able to last long if it occurred a few more times. Their situation shouldn't be too good as well. Luo Li spoke as she glanced at the 3 silhouettes in the distance. Mu Chen nodded his head as black lightning exploded beneath his feet, increasing his speed. Seeing his actions, Luo Li immediately followed. The two of them helped one another, and although it was alarmingly dangerous, it was fortunately only alarming and not dangerous. Vaguely, their speeds were ahead of the other 3. In the distance away, Ji Xian tapped his toe as he mysteriously dodged a spiritual energy vortex, and he gave a dark glance at Mu Chen and Luo Li's silhouettes. Right now, amongst the 4 teams, only the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy had 2 people remaining. If the 2 of them could maintain it, perhaps it might not be too beneficial for the rest of them. Ji Xian's gaze flashed as he looked at another direction with an obscure gaze where Shui Qianhao was at. The gazes of those 2 intertwined for a brief moment and unnoticeably nodded their heads. A smear of eerie chill flashed across their eyes. This episode ends here. Thanks you for watching.